Wild here today, so forgive my appearance. Not that my appearance is much anyway to begin with. I hope you're all keeping well. I hope you're all making the most of life and actually feeling a bit better about things. There's been a lot of changes and some very interesting developments of late, which are well worth talking about. And that's what this video about. So it's this is when you grab a cup of tea specials. Now, there's historic things are happening at the moment. Okay, now in the wake of the Rona, there has been definitely a state of, shall we say, disruption among the globalists. Now, I know so many of you, particularly those of you prone to smoking lots of weed, and the Abrahamics are very obsessed with the idea of like eternal horror is coming, like, eternal misery is coming. That's like you've been brainwashed by your Abrahamic mind and your skunk weed to think that everything is coming to destroy you. But that's not always the case. Yes, we're dealing with a criminal cartel that's running the world, and we have to be aware of their machinations. But because they're just a criminal gang, all criminal gangs slip up. So always remember that, okay? Now, before I get into this, when I talk about political issues, I talk about them like a eunuch talks about a wedding night, okay? I have no interest in, I'm not right wing, I'm not left wing. I'm, if anything, kind of in the middle, but not really. And this is very much the viewpoint of somebody who sees politics for the shithole that it is, and is standing outside the chessboard and is looking at the black and white pieces and making observations. This is not a partisan opinion in either direction. I don't believe in that stuff. In fact, I believe we're finished anyway in terms of all that stuff. Now, first things first, okay? Whenever you see a politician or a mainstream media pundit use the term democracy in 2022, what they're talking about is globalization, okay? Well, at the time of the neocons, around the time of Baby Bush and all that stuff, post 9/11, Gulf War II, when they talked about democracy, they talked about oil, okay? They were talking about oil. Oil was democracy. So when they come on the TV and says, we have to go and save democracy, they were going, we have to go and save our oil. So now in 2022, where oil is still kind of important, and I don't use it for that reason, when they say we have to save democracy, what they're really talking about is they have to save their Great Resets, their Build Back Betters, their Clinton Foundations, their World Economic Forum, their Bilderbergs, their Trilateral Commissions, their Council on Foreign Relations, their Fabian Societies, and their London School of Economics, and many, very many different entities that they're used to basically make this planet a smooth criminal operation on behalf of these cartels, okay? Because that's all they are, okay? So always remember that. When you see Joe Biden talking about democracy, he's talking about globalization. But him, it's a bit more personal. Same with Bill Clinton, same with Hillary Clinton, same with all of them, they're currently in power, especially Trudeau. Now, how true, how they're not talking about democracy as what we think democracy is, people voting. There's a few reasons. Firstly, the Ukraine is not a democracy. It's basically the banking cartel money laundering operation for the New World Order, for the globalists. And this is why Biden is literally acting crazy at the moment. All the Biden family money, as well as, look at it this way: the Ukraine is a Clinton Foundation client state, okay, and that's all the money that the great globalists have, the Klaus Schwabs. It's all laundered and put through there. This is where it's all clean. All our dirty money is all clean through there, and Putin knows this. And when Putin is not threatening the Ukraine, he's threatening the Biden family's money. He's threatening the Obama family money. He's threatening the all the money of all the globalists, the Blairs and all them. He's threatening. He's messing with their money, and scaring them, because that's the ultimate Switzerland. You know, they always hear about Switzerland being a place where money goes to die or and be resurrected as something else. Well, it's really, Ukraine is really like that now. Now, they're drumming up this whole thing that's going to be a war. It's not going to be a war. This is a nothing burger. Chicken Kiev nothing burger. And I'll tell you why. There's lots of reasons. Firstly, Putin is... What Putin is doing now is more than... is his full objective. Is just to rattle the shit out of them. That's all. Just to rattle the shit out of the globalists. And we should all celebrate this. This is why Trump called him a genius. We're doing this because he's rattled the shit out of the globalists, okay? Because all their money laundering and all their cash money dealings are all done through there, okay? So the World Economic Forum basically is, if it had a credit union, it's Ukraine, you know, and they're all the same for all the rest of them, okay? So they just rattled them, okay? Now, what's the whole thing? My enemy's enemy is my gain. That's what we should be thinking about, okay? Because remember, this might be a very difficult thing for people to understand. But if they don't understand it, they're kind of stupid anyway. Western governments have been at war with their citizens for a long time now. And what the last 2 years of the whole Rona thing was Western governments declaring war upon their citizenry. That's all that is. And when they talk about things like, you know, we have to protect people online, it's them they have to protect online from us having opinions. Our governments have been at war with us. If you haven't figured that out by now, you never will. You'll never figure it out by now. They spent 2 years basically imprisoning us and killing us. If you were over a certain age, they took you out. This will be a deleted video, no doubt about it. But yeah, and so you know, these people have been at war with us. And if you don't believe it, look at Canada. Now, last night was a very interesting development. Baby Castro, he rescinded or removed the emergency powers thing in Canada, which was an absolute disgraceful thing. He didn't have to do it. But to show you how many the reason why it happened is a very interesting and very hopeful insight. Not because he was rattled by the trucker so much, but what happened was a run on the banks happened. Ordinary Canadians said, he's going to fucking take our money. This is how little they trust their government. People have learned from the Rona. They've learned that your government is at war with you. And even Canadians who would not overtly be involved with the trucking protest were like, get the money out of the bank before Trudeau seizes our assets and takes them. So literally a run on the bank, and it was massive transfers of cash out of HBC levels of HBS, which was the Hong Kong banking one, that run that happened about 20 years ago, 15 years ago. That happened in Canada last night. And the Bank of Canada's commissioners called up the Canadian government parliament and said, you better fucking stop this now, because we won't have any money in the banks in the morning. And government is about paying the civil servants, so the civil servants have to get their money, you know, their perks and everything. So that's why he suddenly rescinded the Emergency Powers Act, because quite simply there was a run on the bank by ordinary Canadians who finally figured out that their government is at war with them. They're not at war with the truckers, they're at war with them. You understand that? They're at war with the people, all of them, all of the people. The Trudeau government and most of their parliament has actively declared, and as well as all the bureaucrats and the civil servants, have actively declared war upon the citizenry. That's what was really going on in Ottawa. That's what's really going down there. It's an act of war. And, you know, what do you do when you attack your enemies? You cut off their resources. You demoralize them. You take their pets. You have to understand that Justin Trudeau has a hatred of the Canadian working class and many of the middle class that the average person could not comprehend. And all these globalists have it. They have a spectacular hatred of the working classes, and particularly the lower middle classes. They see them as an unnecessary pest. We have to sweep their streets. We have to clean their toilets. We have to make their food. We have to pay the taxes that keep their civil servants loyal to them. And they see us as a necessary, they see us as a virus inside their system. That's how they see us. And the criminal cartel of the globalists has reached a level now where they're really frightened now. Because not because of us, we didn't rise up and frighten them. You, the people, have no power in these system. In this system. That's how it's designed. Quite simply, Putin has played a game of chess with them that's rattled the fucking shit right out of them. Rattled the shit out of them. And that's why, because all that Ukraine is where all their funny money is. Now, there was an element of gambling here, and I was watching this over the years, Russia, American troops will never attack Russia, okay? And this is also the fatal flaw. This is what caused Hillary Clinton more than anything else her presidency, is when she said on stage that I will go to war with Russia and I won't rule out using nuclear weapons. Even people who are Democrats said that bitch can't get into power. And that's because the same thing. The Ukraine is a Clinton client state. All the Democrat globalist money, funny money, is all working through there. Okay, so the game of chess is going on. So I'm outside the chessboard and I'm saying to myself, well, is there a chance of Russia actually invading and taking over Ukraine? Very unlikely. It could happen, but most unlikely. I think Putin has got what he already wants, to rattle the shit out of the globalists, okay? Now, that doesn't mean he's on our side. It's, again, my enemy's enemy is my friend kind of thing. Don't think that Putin is on our side either. Now, secondly, looking at this from afar as well, remember, you're dealing with a poorly educated population, and all you're seeing on all these globalist spooks. If you want to know who's a globalist right now, watch their speeches, and if they talk about Ukraine and saving democracy, you're dealing with a globalist, because there is no democracy in the Ukraine. It is a Clinton Foundation client state, okay? There's no democracy there. It's owned by wealthy American political billionaires, okay? And so when they're talking about saving democracy, it's about saving globalization, which is ultimately the criminal cartel that runs what they call the New World, what they want to be the New World Order. But it's an awful mess as well. Now, standing on the outside looking at this, staring into it, okay, Putin will have a go at the odd military base and stuff. He might do some of his non-linear warfare tricks that they did before. He's a very clever man. But he's got what he wants now. He's got them frightened. The other reason there's not going to be a war over Ukraine is because, particularly, see, it's very interesting. Let me give you a history lesson, right? This is how you learn. They say, those who don't learn from history are doomed to repeat it. The reason why Norway was invaded in World War II so easily was because they had a socialist government in charge of the country who secretly wanted the Soviet Union to invade Norway and turn it into a Soviet. So they deliberately downgraded the Norwegian armed forces. So when in the hope that the Russians would just walk in and take over their country. This is what Bolsheviks are like. This is why a Bolshevik is like a Bolshevik. Any kind of communist is worse than a pedophile and a psychopath put together. If a psychopath and a pedophile had a baby, it even wouldn't be as bad as a Bolshevik. They're absolutely evil. Okay, so the Bolsheviks in Norway opened the door so the Russians could invade. But what happened? The Germans invaded instead. And because they had no money and no money put into their armed forces, they got caught with their knickers down. And after World War II, the Norwegians invested heavily in military, to the point now where Norway, same population, it's a bit smaller population than Ireland, I think, but much bigger landmass, has a huge army, where Ireland has a fuck-all shit army. Not putting any people in the armed forces here. The government doesn't want to invest in the military here because it has no self-respect. That's why we have fishermen fighting Russian trawlers when it should be our navy and our jets fucking blowing them out of water. But that's another story. The same thing has happened. The same Quislings are in charge of Ireland's neutrality has basically been used as a mechanism to make us defenceless. This is why I'm fully in support of an enormous Irish armed forces with a huge budget, because there's only the only way you can protect yourself. A second amendment on the national scale. Another point, right? Digress, but here's the reason. Germany, because of the legacy of green governments, green parties and governments, closed down their coal plants and closed down their nuclear power stations, okay? And as a result, are completely dependent upon natural gas to power their industry and their nation. Where does the natural gas come from? Putin. A pipeline that stretches from Siberia all the way through Eastern Europe and into the EU. The EU is totally dependent upon Russian gas, okay? Totally dependent upon Russian gas, okay? So, this is why Germans are... Well, so the same Germans are going on about Putin, are also the same ones who know that they're the hand that feeds them, okay? Because the same criminal cartel globalists who shut down the oil plants, the coal-fired plants and the nuclear power stations in Russia, are the same ones who've made the gas deals with Putin and Russia. Criminal cartels. And they're also talking about saving democracy. No, democracy to them is globalization. And what's globalization? A criminal operation running the planet. That's all globalism is. There's nothing else, okay? And they may talk about great resets and, having us all, living diverse and all that. But ultimately, they're at war with us, Now, why do they hate Russia so much? Lots of reasons. The Putin was never expected to happen, okay? They were always expected they were going to get buffoon leaders, or they were going to get Mikhail Gorbachev, who were kind of like, talking about peace and reconciliation, perestroika and all this stuff. They always thought they were going to get, so what they did not expect to get a hard man, a KGB hard man running the country. And running the country remarkably successful. Have you seen the economic growth that's happened in Russia? The standard of living has shot through the roof. I mean, the old days of Russia being a poor backward country, sacrificing all its assets for, its space program. I mean, when I say poor backward, I mean the social level, not on the technological or, military level. They've managed to keep their military intact. They're still a superpower. You may not call them, but they're still a superpower. Their space program intact, and they've managed at the same time to develop their country. So their standard of living is coming up closer and closer to Western European levels. Now, he's been very, very successful. On top of that, he's also a nationalist. And this is what's the one thing that they hate more than anything else? Nationalism. Right? People who love their country. We saw that in Canada. The Canadian establishment, the globalist establishment, were literally projectile vomiting at the sight of Canadians waving the Canadian flag. That's why the globalist cartel in this country, under Leo Varadkar, on the centenary of the beginning of our War of Independence in 1916, allowed more Palestinian flags, Sinn Féiners waving Palestinian flags outside the GPO in Dublin, than there was Irish tricolours. This is where all the diversity and all they hate nationalism to the core of their being, because they've never ever felt a kinship with their people of their homeland, and so they think they want to destroy that. They want to destroy. They don't, and this is why they make nationalism sound like it's all about xenophobia and hating other countries. Most people who are nationalists and love their country and their homeland don't hate other countries. They don't. They just don't. You could meet an Italian who is like very pro, Forza Italia all the way, and then you might mention to him, oh, you come from Ireland, and he goes, I absolutely love Ireland. What a wonderful country and a wonderful people. I absolutely love Ireland. And you'll get that all over the world. You get that, you'll see an Irish person saying, oh, I love Malta. Malta's wonderful. But he's a patriotic Irish man. or woman. They don't understand. They're trying to make out that nationalism equals xenophobia. Xenophobia and nationalism are two different things. Most nationalists also love other countries. As visiting it, they respect their cultures, they respect their music. It's just like the paganism thing again. The one if European pagans didn't have any problem with each other's. A Celtic pagan wouldn't have any problem with a Hellenic pagan. A Hellenic pagan wouldn't have any problem with an Iberian pagan. An Iberian pagan wouldn't have any problem with a Nordic pagan, and so on. It was the same with the nation things. An Italian person can love Ireland. An Irish person could love Italy. An English person could love Spain. A Spanish person could love Sweden. A Polish person could love Germany. It happens, believe it or not. A German person could love England. A Scottish person could love France. A French person could love Scotland. That's how it always been. That's the way it is. But that doesn't mean they don't. And they're all nationalists. But they're not xenophobic. They always try to make you believe that xenophobia and nationalism are the same fucking thing. They're not. They're two very, very different things. Xenophobia is wicked. The whole thing of my country is better than yours and you're all shit. That's when it's a real problem. That rarely exists. Xenophobia rarely exists. Most nationalists in most countries will tell you, I love this other country, I went to visit it. And they'll have a kinship with another country. They'll go buy a second home there, or they'll go there and holiday. Look, many Irish people love places like Malta and Spain and Portugal and and France especially, and they spend so much time there. Look how many German people have second homes or emigrate to Ireland because they love it here. But they're still Germans. They're still proud of being Germans. They're just not. They're not. It's just they're proud of their Germanic culture. They're not. They're nationalists, but they're not xenophobic. And they always try to. So when they say nationalist, what they're trying to imply is xenophobia. But it's not xenophobia. It's nationalism. Very different thing. And it's the same thing as when they call pagans devil worshippers. Same thing. And so when they talk about democracy, they're talking about globalization and protecting it at any cost. So what happened in Canada was very interesting. They were outfoxed by the Canadian people. The Canadian people, you see, when you have a woke government, you see, this is the danger of the wokeness stuff. If you're more concerned about transitioning 12-year-old children than you are about realpolitik, let's say, the machinations of statehood, you don't have the psychological ability to understand, oh, this happened and I didn't expect it. Like, for instance, if someone like Trump was in power in Canada, and they said, we'll start seizing the assets, Mr. Prime Minister, hey, we'll start seizing the assets of the people. And if that was Trump in power in Canada, you'd go, you know what happened? No, there'll be a run on the banks. Oh, you're right, won't do it. But because baby Castro is more obsessed with woke stuff, people kind, his brain doesn't extend that far. That's why you kind of need business people and not bureaucrats running countries, because they're ready for the curveball. They're ready for, and also people from the intelligence service, the spies make good leaders as well. They see beyond the initial philosophical mandate of the political regime of the period. So don't be worrying about wars in Ukraine or anything like that. Don't be worried about that. Enjoy the terror that it's causing the globalists. Enjoy the terror, because it is terrorizing them. And that's why, Trump is a fucking genius. When he turned around, when they're all screaming about Russia, democracy, he comes out and says, Putin has played a blinder. He's been genius, and he has. And that was just to dig it into the the Clinton Foundation, and that bunch that stole the election. That stole it. No, they did. They stole the election. It's clear as day. Okay. Joe Biden is a vassal state of the globalist and client. So the United States isn't even, the United States with the stolen election is a vassal state of the World Economic Forum. That was Klaus Schwab is the king of America. You were conquered by the Germans in the end. But, well, no, he's not really a German. He just speaks with a German accent. But yeah, so like, they've created terrible messes. Because globalization really has no natural law connected to it. It's all profane. So like the Bolshevism. It'll always be full of messes, and the classic mess is here's the European Union rattling its sabers at the Russians over Ukraine. Meanwhile, they're totally dependent upon the Ukraine for all their energy supply. Sorry, Russia for all their energy supply. And so you know that nothing's going to happen there. If you had a situation like, especially if it happened now in winter, where King Fahd, like you had King Fahd cut off the oil wells in Saudi Arabia in '74, and look at the catastrophe that caused. The West has still not recovered, by the way. The West has still not recovered from the 1975 oil shortage when King Fahd cut off the wells in Saudi Arabia. It's still not recovered. And many of these things we have, even possibly down to I even wondered about the Great Reset and the Rona and all that lockdown, if that was still trying to address the balances caused by the horrors of that. Now we face an even similar position, okay? So we have a situation where, here's Biden going on TV, the man is in serious cognitive decline. He's not well. That man is not all there anymore. And he's saying, democracy, democracy, Ukraine, Ukraine, Ukraine. And and the price of fuel and energy in America is shooting up through the roof. This is the problem with these globalists, is they don't address issues on the ground. So, for instance, if you live in a city that's got a crime problem, what they do is they make it woke. They don't, and then they say that, and then go back to Russia democracy, Ukraine democracy, Russia democracy, Ukraine. The average person wants to have a roof over their head, be able to look after their family, put food on the table, and have a little bit extra to save or whatever, to go on holiday or whatever. That's really, most people are quite happy with that. And they're not interested in the collapse of democracy in the Ukraine. And when you see the likes of Kamala Harris, how that thing ever even got out of bed in the morning, that ended up as Prime Minister, Vice President, is beyond me. But this is what we have today. We've nothing but idiots in charge of governments. Boris Johnson, Leo Varadkar, Michael Martin, all of them. I mean, I don't even know the name of the guy in Germany, but he can barely string a sentence together. For baby Castro in Canada. And they're all the same. They're all idiots. And why are they idiots? Not because they're all Rhodes scholars. You don't even know. They're always like, they all have degrees and everything. But that's not the same thing as having common sense. And that's just why they've led a mess. Now, it's very frightening for lots of it. Who's really frightened? Who's really frightened by all this? Right. Firstly, you watching this video shouldn't even give it a second thought. And if anything, you should be enjoying watching the globalists cringe. Okay, that's the first thing. Okay, so don't be worrying yourself about World War 59 or whatever the fucking they have you worried about. Okay. Secondly, and this is important, the primary issue there is that Ukraine is a client state of the Clinton Foundation, and the World Economic Forum and all the rest of them have their money laundered through there. Okay, so they're terrified of losing their money. We should be happy. It's disrupting their Great Reset terribly. That's why baby Castro has suddenly lost interest in being, prison warden over his own citizenry, and moved back to the Ukraine, because that's suddenly, oh shit, we're all in trouble now. Okay, same with Boris Johnson. It means nothing. Now, the third thing is the media are in deep shit right now. The people, the same media that lied to us about the last 2 years are suddenly telling us the truth now. It's not going to fly. It's not going to fly. And the same doom-mongering won't work. They've been found out for what they are. In fact, I wouldn't want to be a famous mainstream journalist right now. You could possibly be facing, if not prison, perhaps even like the death penalty, because things are changing very quickly. And when I say the death penalty, I'm talking about mob justice. I wouldn't want to be some celebrity on TV who pushed their own thing and demanded more lockdowns and played that whole thing up, when all the stories are breaking out now about just how many died in the old people's homes and just how much damage the lockdowns did. I wouldn't want to be involved in any of that, because there's going to be retribution, and it's not going to be pretty. It's not. I would not want to be Claire Byrne in a few months' time trying to do her shopping in Dublin or anywhere, and people who's lost family members because of the lockdown coming after her. I would not want to. I would not want to be her and it's this here in the RT in Ireland. I would not want to be her looking over her shoulder for the rest of her life. And all of them, not just in Ireland, everywhere. They they did a wicked and an evil thing. Not one of them questioned government policies because they were all getting paid through lucrative advertising deals for Rona ads and stuff like that. It's very bad for them. Now they're desperately trying to sex up what's happening in the Ukraine, so we forget about that. We have to get them. The citizenry of every country has to now go after your mainstream media and get them. And they're worried about this now. And I mean physically get them. I mean arrest them. I mean hold them accountable. Seize their assets, freeze their bank accounts. In some cases, death sentences. The ones who demanded, the media pundits who demanded mandatory vaccinations should be executed. Absolutely no doubt about that. Absolutely no doubt about that. That was a war crime that they were attempting to do. They were attempting a war crime. My body, my choice. Or anyone, any spooks or academics or anyone like that, they should be treated the same way in the Nuremberg style. Okay, so but that's what they're worried about. They're seeing the clouds of their own demise and their own pain and their own destruction looming on the horizon. They'll be all reporting this video right now. I just know, especially the Irish ones, looming over the horizon. They're all terrified of it. Okay. And they're desperately trying to use the Ukraine to create the distraction from their own wickedness, just like Trudeau was suddenly Mr. Ukraine to distract from his own wickedness, okay? And Biden to distract from the fact that it's all Clinton and his own family's money that's been messed with there. This is a very interesting development, and we should be watching this gleefully, if anything, and not worried. They want you worried about this McNothing burger called the Ukraine crisis. In reality, it's the Ukraine distraction. So that's my opinion. I pretty much believe I can't see it any other way. We'll see and watch what happens. People are asking me if they want to, can they help me in any way? Look, I don't like taking money directly, but I'm planning a film trip to Orkney with Neil we're making a film, and if you want to help the Patreon thing, that's up to you. I don't care if you don't want to. That's your own business too. The videos are out there for you anyway for nothing, or buy a book or whatever. But the best thing would be the Patreon thing. That would be even if it's only like a few quid or something a month. That would help me massively because it all adds up, and it does. It will pay for both our trips and stuff like that, and you get a film at the end of it. So it's not just for nothing. So that's I'd rather anything I get goes right back into BR313. And so on, because I'm not making anything from the ads now. You wouldn't believe how little I'm making from the ad. They've raped me. It's like the videos now after like a month will make 50 cents. I'm not joking. They've raped my monetization. But that's the price you pay for speaking the truth. Love you, sanguine gnosis. Take care. Woo, you lovely bastards. Like, you're all fucking gorgeous.